Hey, thanks for tuning into the Clear Pilled podcast. If you like the show and you want to support us, feel free to check our Patreon page or find us on Twitter and Instagram.
Our billionaire Republican donor who is famed for both his support of Israel and his massive contributions to the GOP and being extremely fat and grotesque. What did you guys deep dive into our boy Adelson over?
Well, so I got kind of a funny quick story. I had actually done a job for an organization that he donated to.
Oh, fuck.
And I had no idea.
Dude, I didn't know you were working with those deep state assets, man. You gotta
I'm in it, man. I got some secrets.
You gotta tell me if you get a job with the Mossad again.
I could tell you all about how Dominion stole the election, man. I was on the inside.
So what was it? Was it a Vegas Connect or something?
No, it was for and I don't want to get in trouble, so there's something.
Don't violate any NDAs, yeah.
Yeah, I'm worried about my NDAs, but I think I could say that it was for a Jewish nonprofit, and the director that I was working with, he had a lot of anxiety about it, because he was like, "Look, like I'm gay, like I'm from Israel, but like I just fucked off all while I was there and just skipped out of the military like as early as I could and." Came to America. But he was like, I have a lot of political reservations about doing this job. And he was talking about, he was just calling them the Adelsons. And I had no idea what the fuck he was talking about at the time. But I just remember like every person that we were interviewing all had these like political reservations about it. But they were talking about, how much of a good philanthropist he was.
Yeah, but I think that sense of paranoia is kind of instructive too, because from like people I know in like Vegas who have like brushed up against like his kinds of like various philanthropic or commercial endeavors, it's like the dude carries his organizations with like a certain crime boss overtone. I mean, like you can't get into the Vegas casino game without having a large like organized crime element to your rise.
Right, without having to break a few kneecaps here and there.
So should I be scared that the Adelson family is going to come after me now that I've leaked their secrets?
Dude, I don't even know. Is he the end of the bloodline?
He comes back from the grave.
Yeah, does he? I don't know if he has any kids or anything.
Oh, actually, he does have a kid. He has a kid who lived and died in the city we're in right fucking now, actually. Like a rural fucking town in Massachusetts.
bitch.
Well, yeah, that's because, Sheldon actually comes from, like, modest means. He, like, grew up, I think, in Brookline, Boston, which is, like, not a especially affluent, like, community. So he does kind of fit into this like moniker of like the American entrepreneur who came from nothing and just kind of proves once again that that's not exactly a recipe for high moral character in the yeah that's true
He's just good with money.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that the one thing with his like passing that's worth mentioning is how he catalyzed this like figure along with the Koch brothers of the major billionaire donor who shuttled money into these super PACs. And he was one of the first people in like so-called Republican establishment to get behind Donald Trump, I think, funding some like super PAC during the primary to the tune of like $250 million.
Well, have you heard the story of how he came to kind of support Trump?
No.
No, fill me in.
It's like, so literally there was like a, behind closed doors meetings he had with every one of the Republican candidates in 2015. And they were all like literally in line to try to suck his dick. Like, and they had multiple meetings before Trump had even entered the race. Some of these candidates were like having these secret meetings trying to get his money and shit. And then he comes out supporting Trump, of course, because they're basically like fucking twins. Like, you just look at the like attitudes of these two people, the way that like they deal with the press. It's like you said, it's just this like crooked Mr. Monopoly attitude, it's like cliche almost.
Right. Well, they both yeah, it is cliche. Like, they both own casinos. It's kind of a nudge nudge to one another. They're like, oh, you love money, I love money too. And then the other thing is that Trump ended up being Sheldon's only candidate who he supported with money, like who actually ended up winning.
Yeah, but they're cut from the same cloth, like in terms of, their business acumen, but also their like billionaire aesthetic, where they like depart heavily from like the kind of new paradigm of the Silicon Valley billionaire with the black turtleneck and the Tesla. They're from an old school of like really like gaudy, like all gold interiors and just like flaunting your wealth, which, in some ways I respect that, like as like a poor person who like is like, kind of sick of seeing rich people who just like don't actually do anything with their wealth except like continue like investing. Like, it's kind of refreshing to see someone who like just fucking splurges on like random useless shit, because like that's probably how I would be if I was a billionaire.
Well, did you see that debate, but like quote unquote debate between Jack Ma and Elon Musk? Like, I feel like that is kind of the crux of what you're getting at. Like, those are the two different types of like bourgeoisie billionaires.
Yeah.
There's like the Jack Ma, like from modest means, like like Sheldon, and who's just totally fucking eccentric and weird. And then you have Elon Musk, who's like, I don't even want to be around this motherfucker. Like, this guy is so weird.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Jack Ma comparison is a useful one to round out like our kind of eclectic billionaire episode, because I think both of them kind of represent just how fractured like the bourgeoisie is. Like, there's no the ruling class, like as a class, isn't able to like achieve any sort of like collective consciousness. They're always fractured and stuff. So like in the debate between Musk and Jack Ma, you just see these like completely different worldviews where, Elon Musk is trying to like assume like the figure of like disembodied like capital accumulation, just talking about how AI will help him like conquer the stars, and then Jack Ma on the other hand is basically just like still a provincial ass Chinese dude who's like obsessed with like American pop culture hits from the 80s, like
but
fucking.
Then he's just dropping like straight Confucianism,
right?
It's just like, we're gonna use AI to like look into ourselves. Like, I'm more interested. I'm not like, I don't give a fuck about Mars. I want to know what's going on inside me. Like,
well, it was funny because like I felt like the difference was too is that Elon tried to sell what he was saying as being a scientific truth to some extent.
Yeah.
Whereas like Jack Ma did have this more sort of like, I don't know, like for the people, like spiritual or something, like affect, right? Like,
yeah.
Elon Musk was sitting there saying like, oh, it's going to be so much smarter than humans. And that just to me sounds just like high, like pontification too.
Yeah.
Totally. Oh yeah. It's two sides of the same coin, without a doubt, like, but like, and I feel like the other thing that kind of unites those personalities like Jack Ma and Sheldon Adelson and Trump is that kind of spirituality, that like Musk doesn't have, or like a lot of this like tech billionaires who are like, they're like enlightened billionaires.
Exactly.
Like these old school, like fucking eccentric, like their spiritualism like circles fucking money and like mankind.
Yeah, no, totally. Like even like a George Soros type like comes to mind, like a type of billionaire that kind of embodies this like neoliberal like common sense end of history, where like these old fucking like tycoons like Trump and Adelson like just have a different like value system that they like ascribe to their life, probably equally like pernicious, but like at least like fucking interesting.
Yeah.
But I wanted to say it's a funny thing where like the way that it gets like spliced around, like that interview between Jack Ma and Elon Musk, like there was an entire remix of it that took all of Jack Ma's points out of context and just made him sound like a complete imbecile and stuff. And then you listen to the original and Jack Ma's just making like very funny points, like calling AI Alibaba intelligence and stuff.
Yeah,
Like
Alibaba intelligence.
Alibaba intelligence.
Which is clearly like a joke, but Elon like looks at the camera in like a completely earnest way, like, can you believe you just said that?
Yeah, yeah.
I think Elon Musk has no sense of humor.
Yeah, Elon Musk thinks it's like an episode of The Office, and he's like looking into the fucking camera like Dwight just said
I love
something
30
annoying.
Rock.
Yeah, I love 30 Rock. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it's funny that you bring up George Soros, because when I started doing research into Sheldon Adelson, the first thing that came to my mind, you know, looking at the way he was donating to Trump, is like, I just don't understand how people on fucking Poll and on 4chan and like the alt-right can like cope with believing that there's this like deep state Jewish conspiracy around George Soros, like creating BLM and fucking Antifa, but then have this double standard where like Donald Trump, like their fucking dude, and like Soros isn't open about any of this shit. Like Adelson was fucking open about all of this. Like if there is some like fucking deep state Jewish conspiracy, which I don't believe that there is, it's like, wouldn't fucking Adelson be the dude? I mean, like, how do you guys think they cope with this?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about this a lot. I think that they're really. I mean, I think that.
Is it selective anti-Semitism? I just don't get it, you know?
I think that eventually they thought there was going to be a turning point, but the foreign aid packages to Israel and moving the embassy to Jerusalem definitely had reverberations within like these like message boards like Poll and shit, where they did start like questioning. But like, as you're saying, the writing was on the wall from the beginning when the billionaire whose only policy objective is to, you know, make sure that Israel can exist like and have 1,000-year like, you know, expanding empire in the Middle East is like the person who's mainly funding. So but on the flip side, I think it's interesting when there's all this talk of foreign interferences in our election. Like we spent the past 4 years like with liberals assuming that Russia like stole the election, and yet we have a very clear foreign policy kind of consensus that's based on the presence of AIPAC in this country. And then Sheldon Adelson is just like, I mean, Sheldon, I think if my research is correct, he basically funds Birthright, but he also funds like non-Jewish Birthright, where like any motherfucker who wants can just get a free trip to Israel as long as they like come back.
I mean, he's like the main donor for like Jewish Republicans.
Oh yeah.
It was like a little faction of the RNC that was dead for a really long time, which he just completely like revitalized. Yeah, I think these fucking donations to Republican candidates and to Republican committees like definitely has a straight line to actual appointments, I think, in, you know, political regimes. I think a lot of people think he had a say in like, I mean, Trump donated less to his campaign than Sheldon Adelson donated to him. from my understanding. Or there was a certain period on the campaign trail where I think that was true.
Yeah, where he was like completely bankrolling the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is worth noting that this all is just like not representative of like the global, like, Jewish community's perspective on Israeli policy. Like, even in the state of Israel, most people are like against like the kind of like settlement regime and like the all the bombardments of like Gaza and stuff.
It's just like how everybody in America is against like the fucking Afghan war. It's like or any war in the Middle East. They're like vastly unpopular. And I guess that was kind of like, where I was going with the job that I did for the Adelsons is that like even these like bourgeois Jewish people, who've committed their whole life into, like especially education around the Holocaust, for like fuck these guys, but at the same time like they fund us, it was basically what they were saying. Like they were pretty adamantly like against the sort of like Netanyahu, Adelson politic, but they were like, look, all the money coming out of Israel is money from them.
Yeah. There's like no other game in town to an extent.
Exactly.
Yeah. I just like wonder what like the end game for like all of that like is when you try to make sense of it on any sort of like geopolitical like level, how you're not just like shooting yourself in the foot by like appearing so blatantly like aggressive and hostile and like partisan, like from any sort of strategic sense, why that would be the kind of like disposition that you would take towards like the rest of the world and interfering in like politics so blatantly. But
I mean, it's worked well for the U.S. It's worked well for the U.S.
I think there is something about, the crux of it being a sense of being, of having like Jewish heritage.
Yeah.
Too, which I think that is, you see a lot in Las Vegas too, where I think people want to like toe this line of saying, I was built up from nothing and that like my people have been, historically oppressed, which is like all true, right? But then it just comes out in these like really sort of pernicious ways.
Yeah, and certainly.
That's something I don't really like know how to explain off the top of my head, but is really interesting.
So did you guys watch the video of the hotel demolition?
Oh, yeah, the spectacle at Sands Casino.
Adelson Sands Casino, which looked like a fucking awesome casino. It was like a 50s style, just like retro futuristic hotel that became the Venetian, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But that demolition is like, it's like looking at a Trump rally, it's like such a foreshadow, just like the Rolling Stones on fucking loop with the Black Eyed Peas, and then like just the most elaborate fireworks show for fucking nothing. Looking at a building. You're just looking at a building. There wasn't any celebrities, but I just love how the 10-second like countdown was like literally explosives going off in the building.
Yeah.
Like the amount of fucking labor and insanity that went into that.
Yeah, there's like multiple like crescendos of like little like, dolphin-shaped explosions going off on the facade as like Frank Sinatra like croons in the background. It's like, just everything you would want out of, some very like macabre like, Vegas. Like it seems just like a scene in Ocean's 11 or something. Like, where's George Clooney?
Just turning fucking anything into a spectacle for everyone to watch. I mean, it's just like the entire history of Las Vegas, too. Where, like, it used to be a fucking nuclear test site where people would just go stay, like Stardust Casino, like go to Atomic Liquor for your drinks, and like watch a fucking fake house get blown the fuck up.
I mean, it's like peak. My feelings about Las Vegas is like it's like peak capitalism in like simultaneously the best and worst way, because there's just peak architecture. Like inside the Luxor is one of the most amazing buildings to me. I mean, you're just like, it's a hollow fucking pyramid. It's totally insane looking, like you're overly stimulated when you're there. But simultaneously, it's just like the most illogical place for any of this shit to happen, and it's just the worst use of the resources. But it's like from an artistic standpoint, like I think Vegas is fucking amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like Las Vegas is just a place that has been like exploited over and over again, just because of the bountiful space it has. I mean, I think that like going from like a nuclear test site, which caused like huge levels of fucking thyroid cancer for generations in the area, going straight from that to being like the biggest like I think it's what is it like weapon? They produced some metal for the weapons industry during World War II, and that became the main industry, which is just equally like I think the like actual bomber of Hiroshima came from Las Vegas.
Yeah. That's poetic.
Only our best come out of Las Vegas.
But
Adelson, Trump, and the Hiroshima bomber.
Yeah, I think I read that fucking Sheldon Adelson literally came up with the idea of like the Venetian just like on like a trip to Venice. Like just randomly,
that's
just like,
so awesome.
I can make a casino of this, and just like, it's perfect.
Have you guys been to the Venetian?
I've never been in it.
Okay, that's literally the way I imagine it came up, because it's like it's the most cliche. It's like actually, I think the Venetian is literally Venice if you've never been there. Like it's every idea of Venice that you might have, but just not fucking real.
Yeah, it's like this like hacky quote from fucking The Hangover. Oh, is this the real Caesar's Palace?
It feels that way. Like,
so do you have gondolas and like little like shrimpy dudes with striped red shirts?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's all of that, and it's all just this tacky American Italian food, and fucking Gordon Ramsay restaurants. But like, there's a fake sky in the entire Venetian, that's just blue, and then there's just like fake waterfalls and gondolas that lead you nowhere. There's no reason to jump on any of these. They're not like taking you quicker to another part of the casino that you could get by walking.
They're always talking about socialists building a bridge to nowhere. These wasteful government programs. Meanwhile, we're building an entire second Venice that doesn't even need to be there.
Well, I love how it's just like there's no copyright on the Statue of Liberty or the pyramids or any of this shit. So they just went right up and just stole all of that. Like, let's steal all of fucking Venice. Let's bring Egypt here.
But honestly, it's more humane. Like the actual like high society people, like the British like Royal Museum of Art or whatever, that just actually pilfered all of the like Pantheon marble like columns and all of the like sphinxes. You get to go in there and feel like, I don't know, you're fucking some sort of archaeologist appreciating high society. But when I drop $300 into penny slots, somehow I'm a degenerate. It's like, no, I'm sitting next to the fucking pyramid, dude. I've been to 7 different countries.
Like, colonialism is just like boring capitalism. They realize that like it's so much better to just like make the fake shit. Like fake Venice is actually better than real Venice. It's like what is it? Paris, Las Vegas is better than Paris. Like Paris kind of sucks ass when you go there. But Paris, Las Vegas is awesome. It's cheap beer, food from all over the world, like big ass swimming pool.
Yeah, and it's not just like a shitty idea to just copy. It's also just like how many resources it takes to fucking sustain something like that. Yeah. It's just like mind-boggling.
Right.
Like you have of course, like the obvious thing is like the amount of fucking energy it takes to like run the strip. Which is like all just like fucking Hoover Dam. They have their own fucking power dam to like keep these slot machines going. But then also just like there's the whole like infrastructure in terms of the internet and the cybersecurity required to keep these companies like having like millions of dollars flowing through them with like high profile clients, which was like, okay, did you guys listen to the podcast by any chance about the
No, fill us in.
Yeah.
okay,
Well, wait, Issa, I have a real quick question. Is there like an Ocean's 11 or some shit yet about people like hacking into Las Vegas? Like a robbery heist movie that's based on hackers?
I haven't heard of that yet.
That's got